Hello everyone and welcome back to the Brightworks. Although nobody asked, I think today might be an excellent opportunity for a bit of a critique. Now, I am often one to discuss different strategies while I commentate these games, but I think today we'll be trying to individually take a look at the ideas that each player goes for and trying to figure out what the best options for each of them will be. This is a lower true skill lobby, and you can see with the chevrons here, a lot of these players are somewhat new to the game. Being led by their team leaders here, which we will meet in just a second. But it's definitely one of those learning opportunity lobbies, as I like to call them. Always good fun, and it definitely means that as a player who is just getting into the game, it feels a bit more fair and a bit more fun to learn the game when you're playing with people who should, at the very least, be representing the same skill level as yourself. Anyways, spawning on the western side, representing our red team, with that beautiful Cortex red. Going for a bot lab, it's ... Doesn't sound right without a third dot. Maybe you should consider going to ... No, I'm only kidding. ... Don't change who you are. Just improve yourself. ... Here, starting off the bot lab. I should qualify that. I just heard a beautiful quote this morning while I was making some chicken tonkatsu. Somebody said the worst advice that anyone ever gave them was to never change. And I think that's just beautiful, because it's so true. So when I say change ... I mean improve. I mean hit your Sigma grind set, hit those weights, hit the gym, make that money, and overall just be happy, my friend. Anyway, bit of a weird start here, huh? Spawning on the eastern side, representing the blue team all the way up north, it's going to be our Armada team leader, B Smooth. B Smooth going to be going for this sort of northern hilly spot on Silver Ridge. I just realized I forgot to introduce the map. Silver Ridge, version 1. You know, sometimes they just, like an author that writes a bestseller and then never writes anything else again. Sometimes you just nail it on the first iteration of the map. Anyways, we do have a couple of rovers moving across the map here for Fire Jub Jub, who is the yellow player on the red team spawning in the southern section, dressed in Armada livery. Getting rovers across the map is always lovely. Try and do a little bit of economic damage. Definitely one of the few things that I would say is a easy way to improve your early game. It's between that, adding radars, and getting used to not going for a bunch of solar panels. Definitely my top 3 tips for how to improve your game. There's actually a video that I put out a little while ago now with Barcast TV where we did 10 tips to improve your early game, so definitely go check that out. One part is on my channel, the other part is on his, and there's some really good stuff in there if you're curious how you can improve your early game with what I think are some pretty easy steps. One risk that you take when you produce a bunch of units early on is you have to put APM into moving these units around, actions per minute. You have to spend focus, in other words, making sure that these units are doing things on the other side of the map, make sure they're firing, attacking, doing whatever. So it's difficult to find the right balance between moving your units and getting damage done with them on the other side of the map and building up your economy back home so that you don't collapse. Something that even I, as well as many of the pros, I'm not calling myself a pro, by the way. I still get terrified when I jump into those high true skill, 20 plus open skill lobbies. But they certainly all are good at queuing the units around so that they don't have to focus on them as much, and then also just choosing the right path for them. Basically everything you can do to spare yourself the APM cost for microing your units around. ... with some excellent positioning here. You can see sweeping against the 2 units here is going to allow for 3 units to fire against 1. That's one of those other tips that is definitely worth pointing out here at transport. An empty transport. Interesting. Why do we have an empty transport? Are we going to catch this? There's no way. Okay, alright, I guess we're going for a little bit of a transport shenanigan. Transports are kind of bugged right now, they don't really pick things up, so I guess once this guy, oh, there he goes. Transports have a really hard time picking things up, and I don't exactly know why, but apparently Dragons has managed to snag a constructor and is bringing it back home. It's an Armada constructor, so it's not like we've stolen a tech switch or anything. We're not going into Cortex. We're just stealing constructors. I mean, yeah, why not? That's essentially a kill. It does take it out of the pocket of Roadkill 7117 over here. That's pretty funny. We don't see that used too often. I hope this commander uses the capture command. We don't just, well, I guess we can eat it up too. There's not really a reason to keep it. But that's pretty funny. I like that. Uh-oh. Looks like Dickon Bowles was eating up the commander wreckage here. It's a bad habit. Definitely don't want to be eating Dickon Bowles. Or rather, Dickon Bowles doesn't want to be eating up commanders. Commanders don't want to eat Dickon Bowles? I don't know. Figure that one out for yourselves. Oh yes, okay, so we're going for the capture command. Beautiful. All right, lovely work here. Now the now Roadkill 7117's constructor has been captured by dragons. What was the point of this specifically? I'm not sure. I mean, now you have a constructor, which is great, but it's like style points, right? It just really crushes the morale. It's hard to want to keep fighting after you've just watched your own unit get captured and sent back to the enemy lines. It did inadvertently give a little bit of a scout here to the red team, just because that thing was transported along this line, so you can see that now they actually know where this base is. Luckily, he didn't fly it right over his teammate's base here, Zulu, but you know, it's something to be aware of. Dragons is trying to find a convenient place to put the commander down. I like that Dragons is taking a frontline position with the commander rather than sacrificing it in the backline. Going for that air start can be very, very passive, right? It can put you in this position where it's very, very easy to get into a situation where basically the only thing you're focused on is, sorry about that, not sure if you saw anything there, but I had to check that my recording setup was working properly. It's very easy to get into a situation where you can, the only thing that you're doing is producing eco, essentially, despite being the air player. I should qualify that that's just typically what happens to me anyways. Certainly you might be better than me. I'm sure there are people out there. I'm absolutely positive about it. I'm liking these formations on the front lines. I'm liking the inclusion of the rocket bots and then mixing in a couple of other units. It's one other tip that I often give people that I think Clinks is doing a great job of demonstrating here, is to make a composition, right? Try and make a organization of multiple different types of units, and I think you're going to end up really in a really nice position here. Aggravators being aggravating as they start shooting down this commander, about 4% per rocket that hits the commander, so it takes a while for those to go down. This artillery is starting to whittle them down, though. So one thing that's another thing that I noticed the pros do a whole lot, and I think there's good reason for it, is they will include 1 or 2 res bots in their composition really early on, and rather than worrying about reclaiming what's ever on the field, what they'll use them for, especially for Cortex, is healing up these units, just getting their health back up. And I think that's a great idea because the Cortex units are very, very strong. They're very tanky, and it allows them to use that to their advantage when you can just heal them back up, and then now they have even more health, right? It doesn't seem like a lot, but 1 or 2 extra rocket hits could be the difference between you turning an engagement in your tide, or at the very least stalling out long enough that the engagement can be won. A couple of grunts jumping on aggravators here. That's a great little push right there. Always trying to keep on the lookout for whosoever is in a position that you can push into without risking too much. And grunts versus rocket bots is definitely a trade anybody should be happy to make any day of the week. A little bit of a 2v1 over here because oh, I see. So a bit of a mismatch of the players. So we have 2 players down south here, fully committed down south. And then we have 2 players down south here, but it actually turns out that Modo was pulled up north because of the position, or because of the airplay here from Dragons. So Dragons going into air actually did end up being a little bit of a misalignment here. You can see what should have happened is we should have had basically 2 in the middle, 2 down south, and 2 up north, but it's actually been skewed around quite a little bit. So Clinks has a nice advantage here. What I'd love to see is a couple of these grunts moving around. They are queued up to this mountain. That's great. I would love to see them moving down the mountain and running all up and over these hills into the backlines over here. There's really huge openings that I think would be wise to take advantage of. All of these hills right here, the ones with sort of the gray and green mixture, those are climbable by bots. The cliff sides obviously are not. And those hills are also going to be difficult to traverse for vehicles, so it's important to remember that that's an advantage that you can express. Stez has done a great job of pushing forward. Here's something interesting to remember. Each one of these turrets is 85 metal, which does not seem like a lot, but if we double click here to see all of the light laser turrets, we'll just do the orange light laser turrets. You can see that it's actually a fair amount of metal, 1,360 metal. It's a lot out on the field, and it does certainly prompt a nice little pushback here. All these laser turrets firing constantly. But once you have a snowbally amount of units, sweeping through light laser turrets is really not that costly. So sometimes it's worth just starting to reclaim all of these when you get the opportunity. So you just have a couple of extra res bots lying around. Start reclaiming them, and you can either move them forward with the commander, like we see Stez doing right now. Stez is low on metal, and that's why I say something. It's one of those ways that you can eke out just a little bit more resources from somewhere on the battlefield, right? That's always what you're looking for. One of them, of course, being those T1 solar panels I always talk about. You can also eat up windmills. That's something people forget about a lot as well. You hit E to reclaim. Let me just show you this real quick. You hit E to reclaim, and then you hold left alt, and then whatever building you're hovering over, when you left click and drag, it will select that building, and every of that type of building within that circle will be reclaimed. So it would assign a reclaim to all of those windmills or whatever you choose to do that with. It's a very, very convenient way to assign builders or resbots or whatever you want to use to reclaim all those buildings when assigning those manually would be just a pain in the neck. Benjamin in a little bit of trouble here. Out all night partying and apparently not super aware of the massive army pushing forward. It looks like they smell blood in the water and are going to go for a kill. I think that's absolutely the right move here. Benjamin, or maybe even Benjamin, going down here. There is a constructor as well as a heavy laser turret to try and kind of cover for him. But yeah, I think the blue team needs to try and deal with this as soon as possible. That's a great positioning on that riot tank here. Beautiful connections. Yeah, those riot tanks can really shut down those pawns so brutally. Yeah, and all things said and done, I think Benjamin is going to hold on to most of the metal from this commander, eating the vast majority of it up by now. More than halfway, and I do think he's going to get probably all of it. So nicely done. Not nearly as bad a trade as it could have been. If that metal had fallen into the blue team's hands, it certainly could have been a whole lot worse, but the fact that it did not is grounds for a nice little tech transition here, which indeed we actually can see right here. Very nicely done. The energy economy is very, very sore right now, though, so I would love to see this constructor either starting up some advanced solar panels here. Let me find those. The advanced solar panels. Just build a nice little array of those, or just building a ton of windmills. What is the wind energy on this map like? 7.4 wind risk? Yeah, you definitely should be going for wind power on this map. 1 to 19 with an average wind speed of, what is that, 14.2? Yeah, wind is going to be tremendously efficient. That might actually be even more efficient than fusion reactors. It's pretty close. Yeah, definitely wind power is the way to go on this map, as you can see here by Moda. It kind of seems like MODOK, but it's not quite. Anyways, you can see with all these windmills here, the energy production is quite nice. Another thing, another helpful tip here. So I did say I was going to start. I was going to try and be a little critical, try and point out things when I see them. Getting a battery up and running. So you can see Moto is only able to store 1,273 energy. An easy way to make your economy much more stable, much more sturdy, especially when the wind speed starts to plummet like it is right now, is to just go for one of those batteries. It really doesn't seem like it with just an extra couple thousand energy storage, but it really can be the difference between running out of energy at a really crucial time and being able to continue producing units. I mean, say for instance your enemy doesn't have a battery and you do, and you're able to produce 5 more units, right? Maybe it'll make the difference on the front lines. Which leads to you getting more metal and reclaim in the end of the day, and all said and done, you are essentially now in a spiraling lead, an upward spiral, a staircase lead, as it were. I guess staircases go both ways, though, huh? Oh! That tank almost managed to kill Fire Jub-Jub's commander, standing right in the middle of this army. That would have been terrible. That could have been a truly atrocious explosion right there. It could have decimated the entire army here for Fire Jub-Jub. Luckily, there's enough tanks to burst down whatever else is sent through. Dragon's getting very cheeky with it, though. I'd love to see this commander eating up some of this metal. We need to go for some energy in the backlines. I think this would be one of the times where it'd be justifiable to go for a couple of T1 solar panels just to get yourself well into that energy economy you need. Otherwise, just start up a fusion reactor. Just go straight into it, because leaking a ton of metal right now and not having nearly enough energy is a really bad sign, and it's going to slow you down while everyone else is not slowed at all. And that's not the position you want to be in. Wow, T1 gunship's getting shot down by rocketeers here. That's a sight to see. Look at those rockets falling out of the sky. That's quite odd. Yeah, that's really, really bizarre. Wow, this is a lot of medium tanks. We're getting to the numbers of medium tanks down here where it's kind of going to get ridiculous. Like, there's just going to be so much army here that it's not really going to be... nothing short of T2 heavy artillery is really going to stop this. You need some crazy AoE firepower in order to shut this down. You're going to need Fat Boys from the T2 Armada Bot Lab. You're going to need Zars from the T2 Cortex Vehicle Lab. Or something to that caliber, because that is just a huge, huge amount of units. Now the Shell Shockers here, the T1 artillery, are caught out in the open. They actually don't have any armor support. They're raining down shells wherever they can, but yeah, a couple of them do get caught by blitzes. It's a nice little trade. Take whatever you can get. It's hard to make that call, but Deathlock should definitely go for a, what is it called? A bot lab here. Get some res bots on the field. If we take a look at our handy dandy metal vision, you can see 716 metal, as well as 2,000 up north here, just laying around on the floor. 2.4k out here in the middle. I do see a res bot, although it is resurrecting rather than reclaiming. I don't hate that, but if we're going to go for resurrection, we might as well go for a ton of resurrections. It looks like that is actually the plan, so very, very nicely done here by Zulu. Clinkz has been holding onto this top lane and is doing a damn good job of it, if I do say so myself. There are a lot of thugs and rocketeers holding on the top here, and they're going to have a much easier time firing down at the thugs than those thugs are going to have firing upwards. They have a little bit more range when they're up on top of a hill, just because they can get a kind of a more of a gravity assist with their plasma slugs, plasma throwers. And all said and done, yeah, this actually ends up working out pretty well. There are res bots in the back here trying to patch together this army, but eventually I think there's just enough numbers here for Clinkz in order to hold on here. The T2 heavy armor has rolled out. We can see those Mauser running up to the front lines, and they are dangerous. One or two shots from those will easily dismantle those T1 units, as we can see. Maybe not one or two. I guess those thugs are pretty tanky. Still very, very, very dangerous to deal with. They can shell away from long range. It's more like 4 or 5 shots to deal with these T1 units. The Bull's also very dangerous, capable of dismantling those T1 units in almost just as many shots as the Mauser, which is kind of ironic. They're definitely much tankier though, and they have that armor plating on them, so they're tough to shoot down as well. Very costly though, 950 metal per Bull. It's a heavy price to pay. Be Smooth has actually broken through the front lines over here. We are going to start reclaiming this, I hope. There it is. Be Smooth reclaiming all of this juicy, juicy metal. Not sure what it was that broke this line. I do see a commander explosion, so I'm going to guess that... oh no, that was a while ago, actually. So, yeah, I'm not sure exactly what we used to break this. There's a lot of corpses over here. Centurions are laying all over the place. So, definitely a massive metal commitment was used here, was wielded around, but... eating up that metal is definitely going to be nice. Two agitator wreckages is definitely nothing to scoff at. Here's another weird phenomenon for you. It only costs energy to resurrect things, but once they're resurrected, they only have a little bit of health. They do go up, however, to their full metal value. So if you wanted to milk the absolute maximum amount of resources out of this, what you could actually do is resurrect these on the front lines. Costs a bunch of energy, but you can resurrect them. And then after you resurrect them, they will be worth quite a bit more, and they will still be pretty damaged, so you will be able to eat them up really quickly. It's one of those ways that you can eke out even more energy from your reclaim. It's very time intensive though, so you pay for that extra metal and a lot of time spent ecoing. Something to be aware of. What happened to the tank army down here? I guess there's a lot of dead tanks, so it must have died in some sort of terrible battle. At this point, ambassadors are out. Those are the T2 rocket launchers, and they do a lot of damage. You can see one-shotting the T1 artillery vehicles. They are effectively the shell shocker of the T2 era. Different method of attack, but definitely the same sort of capabilities, right? Long range, heavy damage, firepower. Much longer range, though. You can see it can fire away for miles and miles here, but we need some sort of rapid response. Jaguars, I think, are what probably we want to get out on the field here for Deathlock. Going for those T2 artillery is very nice, but when you have an army approaching you, you need something quick. You need an effective unit to throw away that you can reclaim later. And I think the best option right now would probably be a lot of those lightning tanks. There's some light defenses up here, some light laser towers. They're nice. They're going to be able to, at the very least, stall for a little while. The ambassador is convenient in the sense that it can run away while it's firing, or fire while running away. Take your pick. Eventually, this will be cleaned up by tanks moving in here from dragons, but certainly these got a lot further than Deathlock is probably comfortable with. Commander should probably just move in here for the D gun at this point, but maybe not aware that you can hit the D key. D is in Delta in order to fire a beam of instant death upon any unit that it touches. Mauser are going to try their very best. Mostly friendly firing, though. You have to be so careful with those. They really can do so much friendly fire damage if you don't use them absolutely perfectly. All said and done, the push was held, and that's going to mean that there's tons of metal out on the floor. 9.5 thousand metal in this gigantic reclaim field on the southern side of the map. Meanwhile, there's also, we'll call it 2,000 metal. Yeah, about 2,000 metal lying in the push wreckage here between Deathlock and Dragon's commanders. Up north here, more wreckages, 3.2, 972,700. Yeah, tons and tons of metal lying all over the field here. Very, very crucial that you start getting those res bots out as quickly as possible. It's one of those conveniences if you manage to keep your T1 lab around, or if you just need to rebuild one in the late game. You can justify the cost of this in the amount of reclaim that you're going to get. I mean, think about it. 620 metal plus the 100 or so for a grave robber, per grave robber, or Lazarus, whatever res bot you happen to be using. Versus the several hundred to several thousand metal lying around on the front lines. Yeah, it's definitely worth it. You're going to be able to recuperate your costs very quickly. Very, very efficient way of getting that metal into your army. At this point, Zulu is doing some great work here, moving very, very far forward. We've got the rocket bots. These are just a bunch of T1 rocket bots, the aggravators. Right now, they're just kind of being shelled away, which is not phenomenal. You certainly want them to either not be within range of those Sheldons, or trying to push into those Sheldons. Wow, that was a beautiful bombing run. Was it cost efficient? Maybe not, but it definitely slows down that resurrection progress. Those weren't being used anywhere, so it's kind of a shame. Zulu, I think, sort of tapped out on APM at the moment, trying to kind of look around and figure out what Zulu's going for. Yeah, it looks like just kind of bouncing around between different labs. There's a T1 lab in the back here still producing a costly T1 army, and I think it's about time to turn that off, considering that there is T2 production out here right in the middle of the map. It's a very bold positioning, but yeah, I think the blue team has a solid lead as far as the spacing goes. It's kind of drawn like this, the line of this map. So the blue team having the advantage in the center is quite nice, but they need to claim all of these metal extractors first. If the metal extractors aren't claimed, then they don't really have an advantage. They have a positional advantage, which is nice, but if you're not going to use that to press the enemy, then you've essentially got no advantage. Meanwhile, all of the metal extractors are up, and we even have a T2 line, or a T2 lab rather, on the bottom line here for Stez. Nice to see. Spybot is out, and I think we're probably hoping to paralyze some of these heavy Mauser, heavy artillery here. Huge bombing run coming along down south here. Is there any anti-air? Doesn't look like it. Not even very many fighters. There's a couple of fighters, but not a tremendous amount. Dragons is mostly worried with the middle of the map. Does finally get some fighters to swing on down here, and they actually end up in just the right timing to start shooting down some of these bombers. Unfortunate for those bombers, but very nicely done by Dragons. Either way, those are the heavy bombers, and they will have no issue going straight through and into the enemy's back line. The amount of fighters that Roadkill brought with him is more than enough to shut down whatever is going on over here. Now we can see the bombers starting to lay waste to these bases. Are they going around for a second pass? Looks like they will. SAM turret is up, but those are bomb resistant, so it's not very effective to go after those unless you know you can absolutely demolish it, completely overkill it. So I think this is the right move here. Just retreating the bombers out of harm's way and trying to use them on something a little bit more effective. Shutting down the air lab is really, really annoying. It means that no more fighters are going to be coming out here, and I think that's excellently done. Let's target those fusion reactors. Those are the next juiciest target here. That is quite nice. Take out that build power. Very nice bombing run here. This is what we really love to see, getting these bombers into the critical areas and making sure that they're targeting the most expensive infrastructure first. Targeting the fusion reactors, very nicely done. I think that's definitely what we want to go for here. We can see the fighters don't really do anything because they're dying as soon as they're made. So going for this AA truck is definitely the right call. Yep, get that thing pumped out here. 450 metal. It's quite pricey, but for the effectiveness, it cannot be beat. It's definitely the best way to shoot down a lot of this stuff here. It's going to gain experience relatively quickly as well as it shoots down a whole lot of these fighters. AA tends to get really quick experience just because they kind of shoot down things in big batches. Wow, those fusion reactors didn't go down. I'm frankly a little surprised. I think they definitely could have been targeted a little more specifically, and it might have worked a little bit better. Meanwhile, Stez's commander goes down. It actually blows up a large part of the defenses here, meaning that, yeah, these units are not going to have a very hard time pushing in. And there is a massive T1 army with some T2 lightning support. Eventually, that will probably drive back these units. Yeah, it looks like Deathlock is going to fall off of that line. More and more bombers are coming out, though. Poor Deathlock, man. Being bombed into the Stone Age not once but twice now. That really hurts. Yeah. Not even the wreckage was spared there. That's quite brutal. Now the bombers are going to continue going along this track here. Again, T1 fight. Oh no, those are T2 fighters. So okay, the T2 fighters will do a decent enough job of shooting down these bombers here. Those T2 fighters are not to be underestimated. They're definitely very powerful. But now the anti-air trucks are out. Going for the advanced solar panels. I guess I don't hate it. That's a lot of metal right down the drain for sure. Nicely done. But again, those fusion reactors are really where we should be dropping these bombs. Fusion reactors, energy converters are very explosive. Very easy to target those as well. I definitely think that second bombing run could have been a little bit better. Wow, look at that. Beast Move going all the way up to the experimental gantry, trying to just finish this game off with as big of tech as humanly possible. By the way, I should say that I love this map. It's really, really neat to see it spread out one side versus the other, left versus right, as opposed to north versus south. If you do north versus south, you can it basically becomes a 4v4 map. Although you can kind of do like a 5v5 because you can do like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then like a backline player. I guess you can do 8v8 too with 2, 4, 6, 8. Very interesting. Kind of diverse map. You really can just do whatever you want with it, which is really cool to see. At this point, Deathlock has been killed. His commander has gone down. Not out of the game yet. There's still some infrastructure here. Do we have any more constructors? Doesn't look like there's any constructors in the back line. Oh, I take that back. There's a T2 constructor here. Hopefully not going to be taken by these tanks, but certainly Fire Jub Jub would love to do that. It certainly feels like a kill, like a kill on a player specifically. Like you've removed them from the game when you destroy their entire base and their very last constructor. Despite that technically not really being their end, they can always rebuild with a constructor that is handed over. Looks like the lightning tanks will go for this final constructor here, and that is disheartening. Really, really is. It hurts to hear it. It hurts to see it. If you're in that position and you're watching your army get dissolved here, it definitely hurts. And then seeing that very last constructor go down, it's easy to give up hope. But do not fear, because usually your teammates will have your back. They'll give you something. They'll try and help you out however they can. Again, no anti-air over here, which is really, really depressing as these bombers come in. Yep, they take out the light anti-air tower, the only anti-air that was around in this entire area. Yeah, these bombers really need to go after these fusion reactors. Fusion reactors are also right next to the anti-nuke, so you know, shoot down the fusions. You're probably going to get the anti-nuke as well. The bomber's just not interested in doing any more damage over here, I suppose. How odd. Very, very odd. Well, that is nice. Okay, the bomber getting a little bit of build power over here. That's quite annoying. Build power is pretty expensive, so that's certainly worthwhile. Easy critique I can say right here is always build these in rows of 2 with a little space in between. So something like this row is really nice, whereas this row is going to chain react. These ones right here will chain react. If you have 3 windmills together, they will chain react. If you have 2 windmills together, they will not chain react off each other. Something that's very helpful to know, but one of those numbers that you don't really figure out unless you play for a good long while, so I'll spare you the trouble. Strategic bombers trying their very best. It's always hard to bomb incoming assault units because you risk bombing your own infrastructure, right? You risk dropping bombs on your own players. And, you know, that's one way to lose team morale very quickly, is to bomb your teammates. Certainly possible. It's one of those things that necessitates the teamwork, right? You have to be on top of it, because otherwise, yeah, everyone would be bombing each other left and right. It'd be a nightmare. Surprised by the lack of aggression up north here. Both teams have the means to be aggressive, and neither one is actually doing it. There's a tremor rolling out to the front lines. I'd love to see that start. applying a little bit of fire. Whoa, what is that? The Tremor got a bit of a visual update right there. Interesting. That's new. That is completely new. Very interesting. Okay. Anyways, yeah, using the Tremor to fire away is certainly a good option. Roughnecks are also out now to try and shut down a lot of these Sheldon that are marching forward. This is a tremendous waste of resources here by Zulu. Just marching in units one by one when you know that they can handle that stream of units. It's definitely not worth it. If you're going to be marching in units one by one, you need to march in some heavy units, some tanks, something like that, and then you need to follow it up with a spam of T1 units, sort of like what's happening over here. It's typically the ideal way to do that. Yeah, aside from the aggression right here in the very middle of the map, everything is sort of stagnant. There's a lot of grunts running around over here, and there's a lot of grunts running around over here. But on the southern side of the map, it's mostly just snipers very slowly pushing forward here. It's mostly just static defense, fire Jub just sort of building in the back lines, mostly focused on trying to aid up here as well. That's always nice to see. Karganeth is out here for the pink player, Mythostropic. Or maybe, yeah, is it Mythostropic or Mythostropic? I'm having a stroke. Somebody call the amber lamps because I am clearly choking on my tongue here. Klinx is starting to build up a critical mass of Sheldon. That's very nice to see. Need to see some radar bots and some jammer bots included in that composition. Typically what I like to go for is a 5 to 1 to 1 ratio, so 5 Sheldon, 1 radar jammer. Usually that ends up working out pretty well. Kind of gives you the coverage that you need in order to spread your units out appropriately, but also, you know, not super, doesn't super heavily commit you to the radar jammer life. I got a cheeky Karganeth walking around here. Could certainly snipe the commander when it comes up on this hill, and I think it probably will. Have to keep an eye on that here as the bottom of the map is also starting to push forward very slowly. Both players, I've described it like this before, and I think it's accurate, but it's kind of like everyone is sort of feeling their way through the darkness, just trying to very slowly and cautiously prod their way through a dark room with their hands outstretched, trying not to touch a bear trap. It's a tricky thing to balance, certainly. I quite like this targeting reticle. Yeah, I think that's quite nice. The only thing I'll say is before, when you would target an area, it meant that you could, it meant that you would basically, some of them would go forward, some of them would go backwards, which means that you can't really edge clip with this anymore. You sort of like have to position on the very far edge. I'd love to see this change so that the attack reticle is in the middle, and then the actual danger zone extends both forwards and backwards from that. Karganeth did end up getting the commander snipe up here on Klinx, which is quite nice, but there was enough agitators, which is a huge expense, by the way. 5,200 medals. Sheesh. Enough to shut most of this down. We'll shut down the single Karganeth that was pushing forward there. Another Karganeth also getting a little bit sturdy over here, trying to escape, but I think this fire breath will eventually be its undoing. Yeah, it goes down with a fury. Snipers are pushing forward, and they're very difficult to deal with, right? Because do you push into them and then you don't have enough troops and then suddenly your entire army is gone? Do you back up and just continue letting them advance? It's a very, very tricky balance. Luckily, very, very luckily here for dragons as well as Dickenbaus, the snipers do not have enough energy, so if they were able to fire, they would be firing like crazy. We do have tons of these butlers out. What I would definitely recommend is you just do something like this, and you hold spacebar, and you let go of your left mouse button, and yeah, you're gonna have a massive wind farm. It's gonna be super, super valuable. Yeah, these snipers not having energy is really, really killing them. There we go. Finally, the snipers do start firing, but yeah, those could have been doing a whole lot more work right there. Unfortunate that they weren't. Did they not have vision, perhaps? No, there was a radar bot included in there. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what went wrong there, but the snipers certainly had that little lightning bolt that says that they were out of power. Hopefully that doesn't happen again. Those are definitely very, very costly to keep running. They can cloak themselves as well, which eats up a ton of energy. So yeah, your snipers are definitely one of those units that you need a lot of energy in order to properly fund. Meanwhile, the middle of the map has been completely broken here, as it would appear that some of the Karganeth have walked all over the middle of the map, started sweeping through here, and have torn down all of that infrastructure. Now getting on top of the T3 lab, and that starts to hurt pretty bad. This one's shooting itself in the foot here as it blows up this fusion reactor right on top of itself. Yep, there it goes. That one will go down, but its sacrifice was not in vain, as a lot more Karganeth are going to be falling up. Oh, look at the carnage. Karganeth do not care about that T1. They will just fire gladly into that crowd of T1 units and dismantle them very quickly with those heat-seeking Karganeth multi-launch missiles. Very good stuff. Where once a gargantuan T1 army stood, there now is nothing but debris, ruin, and crabs with rocket launchers heading on towards your base. Very difficult to deal with. Very, very difficult to deal with. Meanwhile, massive row of snipers up north, too. The K. The K pushing forward with these snipers is definitely a great option, although currently they're being wasted on ticks, so I'd love to see a Juno or two going down up here. The Juno is available to you, T1, starting on T1 tech, but it really is much more of a T2 kind of a structure. It takes a lot of power, it's very expensive to build. It's a missile launcher, so you have to keep track of firing it unless you set it to repeat. It's one of those things that's very easy to lose track of, and suddenly you're in a really bad position here. One thing that I also love to see, this is a bit of a higher level gamer move, but you cloak these bad boys. You turn them off of fire at will, so you just click on this little indicator here to turn them on to hold fire, and then you can just walk them around. You just move them around while your enemy's not looking. You sneak them into the back line. 3 shots later, bing, bang, boom, and you have blown up yourself a fusion reactor in the back line. The enemy is none the wiser. All they saw was a tiny little radar blip, and they wondered, what the hell just killed my entire base? Nuclear missile comes down right here on this hill, wipes away whatever remnants of human, well, I guess Armada technology. Oh no, it was Cortex technology, wasn't it? Yeah, Cortex technology stood atop that hill, which was just a couple of agitators here. Don't mind seeing those getting blown to pieces. They're quite inefficient. Oh, nice. We do have some long-range plasma cannons firing away here from Dot Dot, trying to snipe this here advanced fusion reactor. Those LRPCs can definitely penetrate these shields if they fire rapidly enough. They're having a hard time breaking through, though, and so luckily that shield coming up is going to save this advanced fusion reactor in the nick of time. This is Tick Wars. This is what it looks like when you get a bunch of ticks together and you just have them start running at each other. Just fields of artillery fire met with a lot of sniper fire in the background. The snipers are encroaching, though. Yeah, they're starting to get far enough forward that they can pick apart those slightly sturdier units in the background here. Don't get me wrong, though. Those long-range plasma cannons can definitely hurt this. You have powerful enough artillery, and you're going to be able to bombard those snipers. Marauders definitely don't do very well against snipers. They're one of those units that snipers are able to take down. Marauders, rather, Razorbacks, all those fun units can definitely be taken down pretty easily, relatively easily, by conjoined sniper fire, by the combined efforts of a row of snipers. See all of those Sheldons melting away. Yeah, very, very tricky unit to deal with. The best solution that I can think of is to Juno the sniper, so there's no more ticks, and then walk a spybot into the snipers, and just try and paralyze as many of them as you can. You have to basically keep them from firing. That's the trick. T3 Razorbacks out now, and man, they are powerful. They are war horses, war beasts. See these bad boys walking along here. Very, very strong unit. They're fairly quick. They can move relatively fast. They are really good against basically everything because they fire so quickly, but also can do so much damage. Here you can see them tearing apart all of this T1 defense with essentially no fear, no issue. Oh, I guess a little bit of issue as that one goes down, but this one is going to start continuing its march across the battlefield, shrugging off the light laser fire as if it were nothing. Dangerous, if a little bit unfocused. Now it's in the backline, though, and this is where it really can start doing some damage. Okay, yeah, gonna go for the windmills. I don't hate that. What's the actual health on this thing? Down to 22%. Always remember to self-destruct your T3 when you get into the enemy backline. No reason to give them any opportunity to resurrect all of your units. This Razorback can be resurrected, and if it is, that's certainly going to be a problem for the players on the southern side who are not actually on T3 level. Another nuke does come down, mirroring the first one, wiping away all of the base that Zulu had up here. Suddenly, the red player Dot Dot has broken out of their main base here, and you can see that these Sheldons are moving forward. Resurrected Karganeth trying to shut down a lot of it, and it's doing good damage, definitely trading effectively here. Probably going to go down, certainly going to go down, but managing to take down quite a few of those Sheldons in the meantime, always worthwhile. More Razorbacks are moving in, though, to try and aggress on these Sheldons. Sheldon's not paying attention, which means that the Razorbacks are going to be able to move into position. Who moves faster, the Sheldon or the Razorback? With a speed of 69, quite nice, versus a speed of 50, the Razorbacks are going to win that battle and will eventually be able to kill those Sheldon. We're getting into a proper T3 battle. There's even a Juggernaut heading out onto the field. Wow, that's very expensive. Nicely done on the back here by Mythostropic. Definitely familiar with the economy game. That is for sure. Knows how to tech up quite properly, and now you can see that the metal incomes for both teams are suddenly way out of balance. The red team is now up to 1.1 thousand metal, where the blue team is hovering around 800 while they're reclaiming. Yeah, things are starting to not look so great here for the blue team. Lighter portion of income is from reclaiming. What is the dark gray portion of the income? Oh, maybe that's just the total amount of metal in the bank or something. I'm not sure exactly. I just look at the funny little numbers. The red team now commanding more than half, or more than double the economy of the blue team. That's the important thing to keep in mind here. Where once the position was very, very heavily pressed against them, the blue team was not able to break the front lines. They pushed as far as they could, but they weren't able to break them, and now the red team is finally pushing back. Shiva, very dangerous. Razorbacks beat Shiva, but you have to spread them out. If the Shiva have the opportunity to fire on Razorbacks in a nice big clump like this, it's going to be a very efficient trade for the Shiva. Considering the Shiva are 1,500 metal each, where the Razorbacks are 3,800, nearly 3 times the cost. Don't quote me on that. That's quick maths. Yeah, the Shiva is not supposed to be as efficient as the Razorback. It's not supposed to be as good. But yeah, if you're going to clump up Razorbacks and you're going to let those Shiva get that AoE lobbed projectile off, you're gonna allow them to do an efficient amount of damage. Never what you want to see. That Juggernaut pushing forward is also very, very dangerous. How much metal has gone down in this part of the map alone? 15,000 metal right there, and all of it is going to be under the control of Mythostropic, who is the only one with T3 in the backline on the southern side here. Actually, he's the only one with T3 for the entire team, now that I look at it. Yeah, the only player is actually pumping out those T3 units consistently. I guess with the economies the way that they are, it makes sense not very many of them are going to be able to afford it, but certainly I agree that a D-gun is probably the only way that we're going to see this area cleaned up here. Termites have walked right up this cliff, pushed into the back lines here, and now Zulu's base is in quite a lot of trouble. A bunch of Resbots going down here. They're sitting idly by as they get laser beamed to pieces. Tons of bombers trying to blow up this facility. 2%. Oh wait, no. 2% left on this guy. He's trying to confuse me there. No, the advanced fusion reactors are actually looking fairly healthy. Razorbacks trying their best. They definitely can kill these Juggernauts here, but you have to get basically a perfect surround. This is much better. Dragon's going for the D-gun here, saving his team for sure. That Juggernaut could have been the reason that this team folds here, if not all of the rest of the T3. But yeah, managing to D-gun a Juggernaut is definitely well worth it. See this commander now. Silver Star General. Going for some more D-guns here. Going to try and D-gun some Shiva. I like to see it. The lone bastion against the T3 horde. Marching inwards. Bombers being used all over the map. These ones are going to target this forward facility. I like to see it. Blow up whatever production you can. Reduce it to molten slag. And yeah, there's not going to be much left for the enemy here. Anti-air defenses are fairly potent around this area. Deathlock actually in a lot of trouble. Oh, the very last bomber does get the snipe on that commander, bringing the blue team down to just 2 commanders currently. Suck it, grass. That one never knew what hit it. It was a dozen or so impulse warheads dropped from high altitude B-72 bombers. Very powerful stuff. A bunch of Shivas have managed to position themselves up on this hill. That's very dangerous. Yeah, they actually shoot down the anti-nuke. Who's our player with the nuke? I didn't check. I'm looking. I am looking. There it is. There it is. Ah, the nuke is not charged. How unfortunate. Yeah, if the nuke was charged, we definitely could wipe away everything. This whole base could be removed from the map. Not a smirk of existence would ever be left of it. But fortunately, at least for the time being, Dickon Bows is not under fire from nuclear bombardment. Although will be fairly soon, hopefully anyways. I'm impressed that this side is held against those snipers. I would love to see these just cloak and move forward under radar cover, so just get a couple of radar bots moving forward up here. Or get those advanced radars and build those either. Just tell them to hold fire and then move them within firing range and then untoggle the hold fire. And yeah, they'll just fire it, shoot everything in this line. And then you can just step back and you'll be in a great position here. This is real Civil War tactics. Everybody just march forward. It could work. That's enough snipers. You need to spread them out, though. You have to keep them spread out, otherwise they're going to jump. They're going to bunch up, and you can see these ones in the back can't actually fire. And you're only getting about half of the effective firepower out of your army here. Either way, there was definitely enough snipers to kill all this. Nuke was launched. Instead of going for the green base, it's going to go for the blue one up here. Snipers are continuing to move forward despite the warnings from the K. That is going to be a lot of friendly fire damage as all of those snipers get destroyed. Yikes. Either way, did wipe out the main facility here for B-Smooth, the blue team leader, and that is going to be the northern side collapsing very shortly. Indeed, snipers and welders are also moving down in the southern side. Couple of units are still under the control of Deathlock, who is not tapped out of this game. Very nicely done. I can appreciate a player who sticks through with the team till the bloody, bitter end. And Deathlock certainly showing us that only in death does duty end. B-Smooth, wondering what Green has been doing this entire time. Green has been making most of the T3, if not all of the T3 units for the blue team, as well as getting an Air Force and a T1 bot force. Just a lot of different forces all over the place. Does not matter, though, as the Shiva have hit the back lines, and that is that's a wrap, folks. That's all she wrote, as the Shiva are going to easily tear apart all of this little economic centers that are left. Sheldon also tremendously powerful. Moto in a little bit of trouble. Moda, is it Moda? Great balls of fire. Anyways, Moda's commander goes down, and that leaves only one. Where is it, actually? It's Dragon's. Dragon's commander, the Cyan Blue, decides to self-destruct, essentially resigning for his team, and I think that's a fair decision. Very, very nicely done by the red team, holding out against all odds, beyond all reason, and eventually managing to clutch victory out of thin air. Very nicely done. Very good to see. Love looking at these games that you guys send in. I love watching these matches. There's always something fun to learn, and I hope you can sympathize. Hope you enjoyed today's, and if you didn't, well, there's always more coming out every day for you to enjoy. I will see you in the next video.